Okay, so let's have a look at book 4 and have a look in your overview boxes of book 4. And we're going to be having a look, obviously, at the climactic part of Dido and Aeneas and their love affair. So let's start with this image. Have a look at this. What do you think this is all about? And if you've had a look in your booklet, we have had a little bit of a textual analysis of the first part of book 4. Dido is lovesick. There's a whole string of great examples, but my favourite one, line 82, 83, or 80, 82. Then after they had parted, when the fading moon was dimming her light and the setting stars seemed to speak of sleep, alone and wretched in her empty house, she would cling to the couch Aeneas had left. There she would lie long after he had gone. She would see him or hear him when he was not there for her to see or hear. So the first key event is we've got Dido in serious trouble. Have a look at these two events. These images give us a little idea about what else is going to come in book 4. The one on the left, secret plots and alibis. These are the plots of Juno and Venus. And Juno is very keen to try and stop Aeneas getting away from Carthage, to stop him from founding Rome. Venus is worried that Juno might turn the Carthaginians against Aeneas and perhaps hold the Trojans prisoner or even kill the Trojans. So she goes along with this plan to encourage marriage as well. They're forced into a cave by a storm, and although Aeneas doesn't catch a deer on the hunt, he does catch Dido. After they've been in the cave, all that Virgil says is, from now on, Dido gave no thought to her appearance or her good name, and no longer kept her love as a secret in her heart, but called it marriage, using the word to cover her guilt. Of course, she may be calling it marriage, but look at the image on the right. Who is about to feel like this? And that is going to be Aeneas, because Mercury is sent down by Jupiter because of the jealous Iarbas. And Mercury says to Aeneas, have you entirely forgotten your own kingdom and your own destiny? And that crushes all of Aeneas's passion. And immediately it's like a switch off. Up to then, he'd been all into love and all that sort of stuff. Now he's dumbstruck and he longs to be away. In fact, he is rather embarrassed by the arrival of Mercury because, as it says in line 260, Mercury caught sight of Aeneas laying the foundations of the citadel and putting up buildings. His sword was studded with yellow stars of jasper. Glowing with Tyrian purple, there hung from his shoulders a rich cloak given him by Dido. Oh, dearie me. Unfortunately, Aeneas is doing her work for her and wearing her hoodie. And so he is totally busted by Mercury. The emotional overload means he's immediately wanting to run from Carthage. So there's our first three things. Dido's lovesick. There are plots by Juno and Venus. And then there's the emotional overload that forces Aeneas to change direction. What about these two images? You've already got a hint on the bottom left, and you've probably got an inkling on the bottom right. Aeneas sets his crews into their ships and says, get ourselves ready, we're going to sneak out, lads. Don't tell anybody. Unfortunately for Aeneas, of course, as Virgil says, the queen, who can deceive a lover, knew in advance some scheme was afoot. So she actually comes and confronts Aeneas and asks him what he thinks he's up to. And after discovering that he is intended to flee, she sends him away with a curse, saying that she'll follow him not in life but in the black fires of death. And as a result, then she moves to commit suicide. I'm not sure who the hag is in the bottom left corner of that picture, but there you go. That's medieval or actually early modern art for you. Her suicide is the final of the key events in book 4. So those are our key events. There's a Roman context. Dido is an African queen, and she's an obstacle to Aeneas's pietas, his destiny. Cleopatra is an African queen who, oh look, the words are the same, who is an obstacle to Augustus's pietas. So actually it's Cleopatra's alliance with Mark Antony, which looks to try and stop Augustus, bringing the glory back to Rome. So Dido is like a kind of proto-Cleopatra. And in addition, as well as that, Carthage was built by Dido and later in history becomes involved in the Punic Wars against Rome, which run from 264 BC down to 146 BC. And most famously involve Hannibal and his elephants coming across the Alps. So Dido is a combination of a Cleopatra figure. She's the leader of a city that will eventually be the major challenge to Rome's power. And that's where she actually represents a threat to Rome as well as to Aeneas. So there's our Roman context. In terms of Virgil's style or his narrative techniques, I just want to pick out one thing which I think is a really, really effective, and it's the rumour, actions of rumour, lines 175 to 219. And there's a brilliant metaphor to talk about the nature of rumour. Starting small, she has an eye that never sleeps, a mouth never silent, and ears always pricked. And if you read that passage, you'll see that that is the nature of rumour. Actually, what happens with rumour is she begins to get bigger and bigger. As Virgil writes, of all the ills there are, rumour is the swiftest. She thrives on movement and gathers strength as she goes. From small and timorous beginnings, she soon lifts herself up into the air, her feet still on the ground and her head hidden in the clouds. If you've ever been the victim of a rumour, you know how quickly it develops, how big it can become. And also, if you've passed on a rumour, you know how quickly your passing it on helps to expand it. And that's exactly what's happening here. The rumour that Dido and Aeneas are married is actually a secret in Dido's heart. But the next line is, rumour goes off and it tells everybody. And that's the classic thing, isn't it? That it's actually a secret that's passed on. So rumour tells Iarbas. Iarbas had originally given Dido the land for her wandering people, and she had then dumped him when it came to a marriage proposal. Iarbas' father is Jupiter, and so Iarbas prays to Jupiter for help to stop their marriage. And who does Jupiter go to? Mercury, who goes back down to, oh yes, the hoodie, the building, the Aeneas, the shock, the horror, the running away. So that's how rumour is the kind of absolute fulcrum part, and brilliant metaphor captures that. So I'd encourage you to read lines 175 to 219 for that. Character developments, we're going to be spending time in the lesson looking at Dido's character, which is going to be in the booklet. The other thing to bear in mind is that Aeneas' character revolves around his meeting with Mercury. He moves from being the infatuated lover to the servant of destiny. And the two key words for that is amor, so that's love, and it's usually talking about a passion that's out of control, that kind of love, to pietas, which is the absolute control and obedience to destiny. And in the meantime, poor old Dido is declining into madness, as we shall see in the lesson. So that's your summary, and that's the notes you need for now.